afford to build their rail line, so they just contract trucking companies for them. When BHP was the sole holder of the rail line through to Port Hedland, Fortescue Minerals came along and they decided they didn't want to build a rail line. They wanted to use BHP's, but BHP said, no way, you're going to stop us from sending out our product. We'll take you to court. So FMG went to court with them for a while, but BHP held them up for too long, so they decided to build their own. And then when Gina Reinhardt came along for Roy Hill, she tried the same and she ended up building her own rail line. And about 40 kilometres south of Port Hedland, BHP's built a big all-car wheel turning workshop. This is their smaller facility. This one here, they've got a series of sensors where that new workshop is, and they can sense any wheel wear for all the all cars and the locos. If they detect too much wheel wear, they will either go to that workshop down track or this one here. This small shed here is got some underground lathes. They take them over the top of these underground lathes. They will then refine the wheels so they're nice and round. If they have gone too far, then they come up to this bigger workshop here and they will then replace the wheels. This workshop here can deal with up to 2,500 all cars. The one down track, that's a huge workshop. It is fully air conditioned. It can work on up to 11,000 all cars. This one here is manual. The one down track is 75% robotic. When they want to move the all cars around the site, they will use these little machines here on the left, the little yellow mustard colour. They're called trackmobiles. Now that's moving this loco at the moment, but they'll also move up to 30 all cars around the site. It's a lot more cost effective than using a locomotive. You don't need to be a loco driver. You only need to have a high rail licence. And you might have seen a high rail either on the rail line itself or in one of the shopping centres. It's normally a Land Cruiser with rail wheels. They will drop the wheels down onto the rail line at a crossing. Once they're down, it's lifted up the vehicle high enough that the road wheels won't be touching the rail line or anything on the ground. And they'll move crew to and from different mines, especially when the roads are flooded. You can still move on the rail line. And many years ago, my husband has always worked on the rail line, but I met him after he'd already worked in Tom Price as a rail signals technician. After we got married, he was offered a job back there, so he took it, but he left before I did, and he rings me up, he says, I have a high rail licence. And I was very ignorant to the rail line at that time, and I actually thought it was one of those rail cars with the handles that you pumped up and down. Had no idea how long their rail line was. It's 360 kilometres. It would have been a very long way to travel along the rail line up to Dampier and back again. So yes, I was very disappointed that he wasn't getting his exercise there. Over here on the right, this is all that is left of the creek system before BHP or Mount Newman Mining reclaimed the land. Quite often this has got water in it. And when it's water here, it is home to about 50 different species of water birds. Once it dries up like this, they will then just disappear and they all go out to the local sewerage farm. But as soon as there's water here, they seem to know about it and they're back here within a flash. And there's a few people in town that have been here since before this land was reclaimed, and they're a little bit dirty with BHP because this used to be good fishing and crabbing grounds. When I came here in 2001, you could go up the harbour and go fishing and crabbing. You'd come home with a good feed, you'd be able to feed the neighbourhood as well. If you go up there now, you'd be pushing it just to catch anything. Over on the right you can see some old rail wheels and all cars and rail line. Once they've got enough scrap metal, they will then send it out on a ship. It'll all get cut up, put out on a ship, sent overseas to be recycled. We'll all be silly enough to buy it back with a Toyota and Nissan badge on it. And those sleepers, well, they used to make the concrete sleepers here in Port Hedland. There was a factory out at Wedgefield and it worked there every day of the year, 24/7. And unfortunately, when Fortescue Minerals came along and Gina Reinhardt, they decided they didn't want to buy these sleepers from Australia. It was too expensive, so they bought these from overseas. So unfortunately that factory has closed down. Bit of a shame, it did employ quite a lot of people. On the other side, where that train is, that's where they'll re-marshal all the trains, put them all back together and then send them back to the various different mines between here and Newman. So this workshop up here, this is the lube service workshop for the locos. That's all they do up here is lube service. Everything else is done down at the loco overhaul workshop. This is 75% robotic, operated from Perth. It's only about 6 or 7 years old, so this is the newest part. If you were to travel to Newman by road, it's 460 kilometres. By rail, it is only 420. It takes 8 hours to travel from Port Hedland right through to Newman. The train driver will then have to stop halfway between Port Hedland and Newman at a camp called Redmont. They then have to get out of their train and take a required half-hour break. Quite often they'll meet another train coming from the other direction and they swap trains and come back to where they left. But they do take an overnight bag because obviously they don't always run into another train at the right spot, or there has been a bit of a delay, so they'll stay down in Newman or one of the mines and then they'll just come back the next day on their next shift. It's a 24-hour turnaround for the trains from the time they start loading the trains in Newman, send them through to Port Hedland, offload them and re-marshal and send them back. It takes 2 to 3 hours to load and 2 to 3 hours to unload the full length of trains. The locos they have here, they're all come from America, about $4.8 million each. The ore cars they get from China, they're about 170,000. You might notice some of the locos have got a name on them. Not everyone does, but every now and again BHP will do a bit of a competition and you can put your name in the hat and they pull your name out, then you can name one of the locos. And those ore tankers there, those oil or fuel tankers, they'll actually rail a lot of their fuel down to the various different mines. Now, full-length train is built of 2 rakes, and a rake is 2 locomotives, 132 ore cars. Then they'll attach another 2 locos, and then another 132 ore cars. They'll be at a length up to 2.9 kilometres long. And these locos are designed to be driverless, but they will have one loco driver for the whole train. Those locos in the middle, they have their engines running. They're there wholly and solely just to help push them up the hill. It's actually a slow incline all the way from Port Hedland right through to Newman. So they are designed to be driverless, but the driver does have an important role in life. He or she does have to press the dead man switch every 90 seconds. If you don't do that, the train will come to an automatic stop. That's not a good thing, because a loaded train stuck in the middle of nowhere is costing well over $1 million an hour. And BHP doesn't like to lose money. So I've been on the other end of one of these questions, because I used to work with the tugs for nearly 10 years, and I hadn't allocated any tugs for a ship, wholly and solely because they never allocated a ship to one of their shipping berths. So they must have done it on the side, and nobody rang me to tell me that they'd put a ship on there, and they ring me up and accused me of costing them $30 million. In fact, it was $60 million, because one ship in, one ship out. The time of the delay, it could have been 2 ships, so they weren't very happy with me. I said, well, you can't schedule a ship, I can't schedule tugs. Their answer back to me was, I should have asked questions. But in those days, we were on call at night, so we could be at home, and I'd just get a phone call in the middle of the night to say we need some tugs for this, that and everything else, or changing schedules. So I couldn't even look out the office window to look at the berth and go, yep, you do certainly need some tugs. But anyway,